Hello, my name is Stanley. I'm the lead developer at Orographic Softwares, and I'm going to show you how to connect your Java application into a MySQL database without without using the traditional JDBC connection, but rather ORM or object relational mapping. And the framework we're going to use is called Hibernate. So for prerequisites, you need to be having a MySQL database already installed. Netbeans, I'm going to use Netbeans Heidi, but you can use any other ID that you feel comfortable with. But whatever I'm going to show you is going to use Netbeans, and I'm going to use a MySQL client called Heidi. So let's start. We're going to start right from the beginning. So what I'm going to do, I already have a database which is created. So I'm going to start my database client. I'm going to start by creating a completely new database, so that we all starting from the same place. And with Heidi, you can create a database without having to know the syntaxes. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to say create new. I'm going to go to database. I'm going to name this database let's name it testdb DB. Okay, I'm going to click OK, and as you can see, there is a database which will be created, which is called testdb right here. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, we are going to create a user for this database to be able to to access this database. I'm going to come here to manage user authentication and privileges. I'm going to add a new user. We're going to name this user testdb. Okay, let this person connect from anywhere, this user. Password, you're going to put testdb, or use whichever connection, whichever password you want, testdb. And I'm going to put here testdb. I'm going to allow this user to access our testdb, which is right here. I'm going to select this DB and click OK. So this is we're going to say this user should have access to all privileges in that database, and we're going to save this. Okay, so now if you see in the list of users, we have the user for testdb right here. So I'm going to close this this window. Now, two things we've done: we've created a database testdb, and we have now a user and password which are named testdb to manage that database. What I want us to do right now is create a simple table. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to right click here and create new, and I'm going to say table. I'm going to name these tables employees. Okay, and you can comment. You can write a comment on the database, but it's not it's not mandatory. You can say this is the table that will hold employee details. Okay, details. Now I'm going to I want us to start now creating fields for this table, and my first field which I'm going to create is the identity column, which I'm going to call employee ID, employee underscore ID, and it's going to have data type of integer, and I'm not going to allow null because I want this field to be auto increment. Basically, I want this field to be the primary field. So I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to come to indexes. I want to index this field. I'm going to add a new index, and I'm going to select the primary key from here. I hope you're following. Primary. Okay, then I'm going to right click on this key and add a column, which is by default, because it adds the employee ID column as the primary to the primary key. Now you can add the other fields as you wish. Say for example employee name. Okay, This will be a string field, no default value. Just let's not have any default value for now. You can add, say, employee location. You can add employee salary. Okay. You can add the date when this was created. You can put a timestamp, or a date stamp. You say this will be a date. Okay, let's just have those two. No, the employee salary will not be string. This will be, let's make it a double. I want us to have the basic data type. We have an integer, a string, a double, and a date. So I'm going to save this database, this table, and our table is created basically. So what I'm going to show you is how to store information into this table, and how to retrieve information from this table without using the traditional JDBC connection, but purely on Hibernate, and we're going to use Hibernate criteria for this. It's something good to learn, because basically the application you create will become database independent, and all you have to do is do very minimal changes, so that this application we're going to make can run on Oracle database, can run on MySQL database, can run on SQL Server database, practically, because we are not going to write any SQL statements. So SQL statements are the ones which make an application tied to a database. But since we are not writing the SQL statements, this application will be completely independent. Okay, now as you can see, our table does not have any information. It's just a blank table. Now we're going to go to our Netbeans, IDE. Allow me to close this. All those are okay. Now we're going to create a new project. We're not going to go to web. I'm just showing you the concept. New project. We're just going to select Java application. Next. I'm going to call this test app. Okay, and that's it. I'm going to just click finish with I'll just leave the defaults on, and our project is created with the main class. Now one thing I want us to do is to add the MySQL driver, or the JDBC driver. It's needed for this to work. So I'm going to come to right click on my project. I'm going to go to properties, and in my library section I'm going to add a jar folder, and I'm going to find my JDBC driver. Let me see whether I can find it. Okay, there is a MySQL connector. I'm going to add it and click OK. So now we actually sorted on this one. The next thing I'm going to do, I want to create something we call the entity class. The entity class in ORM, this is the class which will be mapped to the database. Basically, it will be the class that will have a one-to-one relationship with the database. So I'm going to create it very simply. I'm going to come to my package here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click new. You select Hibernate mapping files and Pojo from database. Now for me, because I've used this often, it's here, but you can, if you don't find it on this list, you come to other. This window will open. Then right down here you have Hibernate. You choose Hibernate. Okay, so we're going to create 1 minute. Let me go back on this. Before you do that, we need to add the Hibernate framework into this application. Sorry, let me show you how to do that. We're going to right click again. I'm going to come to properties. I'm going to come to libraries, and this time I'm going to add library. I'm going to, if you have Netbeans, this should have been installed already. It comes with Netbeans. It's bundled with Netbeans. So I'm going to import. When I click import, I should get a listing of all the libraries, the available libraries. And as you can see, I have Hibernate here. I have Hibernate 4.3, 4.3 JPA. I'm going to use the JPA. Okay. So I'm going to import this library. Okay, and add the library into my projects. Now this one avails the framework, the Hibernate framework, into my application. Okay, that's one small step that we had, small but important step that we had skipped. So let's proceed. Now I'm going to add the mapping class into this application. So I'm going to select other. I'm going to come back to Hibernate place. Okay, and then I'm going to create, the first thing I need to do is create the configuration wizard. The configuration wizard is the file which now has the database properties. Let's start with this one first. We'll come back to this screen for something else. I'll show you later. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to click next. Now here you have to select a data source, and as you can see, we have a lot of data sources which have been in use before, but our data source is not, our database is not listed here. So what we are going to do, we're going to have to create a new database connection. Okay, now I'm going to click the new database connection, and I'm going to choose the MySQL driver. This is the MySQL connector. Okay, now this application just default goes to the added driver, but if you don't see this, you can just add your driver. You can just go on and add your driver, but this one is already added. You can just click add and browse to where the JDBC jar file is. I'm going to click next. We are going to use now the user that, remember, in Heidi we created the user named testdb, and that's what you're going to use, testdb, and the password was testdb, and I'm going to ask the IDE to remember the password so that I don't have to keep putting it in. And I'm going to test this connection and see whether it works. And it says cannot establish connection to, okay, the database is testdb. You have to fill in the correct ones, so let me test the connection again, and as you can see, the connection is succeeded. So I'm going to click next, and schema, I'm just going to click next and finish, and as you can see, our connection is now added into the data source with the dialect of with the MySQL dialect. I'm going to click finish here, and what will happen is the IDE will create for me this configuration file. Now to see the source of this configuration, you can just, this is the design, you can just click the source here, and as you can see, it puts the dialect as the MySQL dialect. The class, this is the JDBC, the driver, and the connection URL, this is our database URL, and the username and password. Now in case you're changing the database, this is actually the only file which changes, because for example, if it's dialect, we'll have Oracle dialect, we have the Oracle driver and the Oracle URL and username and password, the same thing. That's why it's very important to, if you don't know which database the application is going to use finally, or you want your application to be database independent, it's better to go the ORM way. So now we have this configuration file. Now the other file I want us to make is called a reverse engineering file, and I'm going to come here and click new. I'm going to come back to to my other, and I'm going to go back right to Hibernate, And as you can see on my number 3, I have the Hibernate reverse engineering wizard. Now this file, it will help us to map the database table with our code without having to to write the entity classes ourselves. And now that we only have one table, even if you have a lot of tables, this helps you to create all the entity classes automatically without you having to to write them manually. So I'm going to click next and next. Now as you can see, by default the available table is employees. Remember, we created the table called employee, the employees table. I'm going to add, if you have a lot of tables, you can just add all, so that all the tables are added into the reverse engineering file. And I'm going to click finish. And as you can see, this reverse engineering file is created with the catalog as testdb, and the table name is employees. We only have one table. This is all we're going to use for now. Now we are ready to create the entity class for this. Now a lot of people choose to use the XML file, but for us today I want to show you how to use the entity class. Okay, with EJB annotation. So I'm going to come here and right click again. I'm going to click new, other. I'm going to come back to Hibernate, and I'm going now to create the Hibernate mapping files and Pojo from database. This Pojo is plain old Java object. It is basically create an entity class with getter and setter methods. I'm going to click next. Okay, and as you can see, it asks for the configuration file which you have already created and the reverse engineering file. So it's important you have these two files before you can come to create the entity classes. Now as you can see, we have the setting here will be domain code Java or Hibernate XML mappings. You can use either of which you feel comfortable with, but today I want to show you how to use the domain code .java file, and we're going to have them with EJB3 annotation. So I'm going to select these two and I'm going to click finish. Okay, now the IDE, as you can see, does two things. If you come back to a configuration file, there's this class which have been added here, but I want us to pull out this because it's not an entity class. And let's get left with the employees mapping. And the second thing which that action has done is to create this entity class. As you can see, we have something here which is plain getter and setter methods, but as you can see, it has our table fields mapped to their corresponding data types. We have an integer for employee ID, we have the string for employee name, double for the employee salary, and the date for RCRE time. And the employee ID is a generated value, so we will not be able to put the value for the employee ID, but we'll allow the engine to generate its own an auto increment value. And the class goes to map the rest of the fields to their database names. Okay, this one I'll not get into details for this, just you can do some research on that. Now we have this class now, so this class is entirely mapped into a database. So what you're going to do, I'm going to create a new class here which we'll call it the database access object. Database access object. Okay, now I'm going to put the methods which will give us value from the database. To start with, I want us to be able to add values into this database. Okay, so I'm going to put up a method which will allow us to add values into the database. Okay, before we do that, I'm going to add one more class here. Okay, just right click on this and come to back to the other. We're going back to the Hibernate place. We're not going to write code today. We're just going to let this ID write the code for us. I want you to select the Hibernate util Java class. Now this class is the one which enables us to initiate the ORM session, and we are not going to be able to access the database without that session. So I'm going to click next here. Just name it as Hibernate util. We're just going to let it be that way. Click finish, and as you can see, the ID again creates for us another class here, which now is the class which initializes the session factory for Hibernate. So this one, it's going to be there. We're going to use it. Okay. Now let us start. I'm going to put a public static, maybe Boolean. You can use void. You can use whichever type that you want. But for me, I want to use a Boolean so that when it's successful, it returns true, and when it's not successful, it gives me false. And that way, I'm able to track the progress. Add employee. I'm going to call it add employee. Okay. Okay, so I want this class to give me the employee ID, which is generated by the engine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call integer emp ID is equals to 0. Okay, but I want, when this class returns success, I want the emp ID to be greater than 0. Now if emp ID is greater than 0, it means that the insert of the employee was successful. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to our JPA class, and I'm going to implement this employees method. So I want all these values in my method, so I'm going to have them there. Okay, because I want, when I give this Boolean, an employee name, an employee location, the salary, and the date which is created, to insert that information into the database. So now let's start the code writing of Hibernate, and I'm going to initialize a session class. I'm calling it session is Hibernate util dot get session factory. We open the session. Okay. I'm going to initiate the transaction. The Hibernate transaction. Let me put try and catch statement there. In this, I just want to, if there is an error, just print it out. For now, I just want to get the message. The next thing I want to do, if there's an exception, is to roll back this transaction. If tx is not equal to null, okay, this tx, the transaction is not null, you call a rollback. And finally, if nothing else, close the session. Okay, now we have the framework of our method. Let's begin the transaction from the session. Okay, now the next thing that we are going to do is use the employees class to add these values into a session. So I'm going to say employees emp is equals to new employee. Okay, and here is where I'm going to give these values to our class, so that's when the class starts with initializes with our employee name, employee location, employee salary, and the timestamp. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is save this session. So I'm just going to call session dot. Okay, now because we want the emp ID, I'm going to say emp ID is equals to integer object session dot save emp, save the object, and we commit this session, commit the transaction, I mean. Now, as you can see, if I call this method with the values, I'm actually done with that method. If I call this method with add employee with the values given there, it will add a record into our MySQL table. Now I want you to see how nice this is, because it does not have an insert statement anywhere. So this will work with any database that you think of, because there is no syntax dependency. Okay, so let's see how this works now. Okay, so I'll come back to our main method here, and let's have one employee here. We're just going to come up with random values. So let's say the employee name is Stanley. Okay, the employee location is at Origafric. Okay, and the employee salary, now this is going to be a double. Employee salary is going to say 120,000. Okay, what else? We need the name, the location, the salary. The time we're just going to put a new date as the current date as a timestamp. Now I want us to say if database, we call in that class now, if database access object dot add employee. Okay, so here we're going to put the new date stamp. If this is true, we're going to print out record employee added successfully. Okay, else we print out something really wrong happened, like a fatal error. Okay, all right, so if we have done everything as it should be, if I run this application, we should expect to find a record in our table, in our SQL table. So the table I'm talking about is the table that we created here. As you can see, this table is still empty. Nothing is there. So what you're going to do, we're going to try and see what we've done, if it's something missing or we've done it correctly. So I'm just going to run this, and let's see. Okay, don't worry about these. These are just Hibernate output, but as you can see, we've had a success because our boolean did not return false. I have employee added successfully, so we just have to confirm from a database if this is actually true. So we can just come here and refresh, and as you can see, we have a new record in the database. So let's put some more values. 1 minute. Let's add some. Let's put some different values. We have Joseph here. Their salary is 150. He's in Nairobi. Okay, we're going to run this. Okay, That's it. That's enough. So again, we should have had another record in Joseph record in the database, as you can see. As you can notice, we are not putting in the employee ID, but it's being generated by the engine, and that's why it's important to mark that field as generated value with identity on your ORM, on your entity class. All right, now I've showed you how to put information into the database without having to write a single SQL statement. And now I'm going to show you how to do the same. I'm going to show you how to extract a list of objects from the same database without writing a single SQL statement. So we're going to use a list object, the java.util.list class. So let's have another method here. List object. We're going to have the employees class, our employees class, as a type. Okay, and we're going to say get details. Say we want to get details for now the criteria that we are going to use to get the details. Say it's using the employee ID. Okay. Employee static list, get details. Okay. 1 minute. Let's write properly. I'm going to say public static list employees get emp details. You're going to use integer employee emp ID. Just say emp ID. Okay. So we're going to initiate a list object here for employee class. Say employees. Just let it be null for initialization, and we're going to return the same. Okay, now what I want us to do is use the criteria API to fetch information from the database, from our employee database, and the filter will be the employee ID. You can use other filter. You can actually not filter it at all. But for now, for this small tutorial which I've prepared for you, I'm going to show you using emp ID, the employee ID. So I'm going to initialize the session. Okay, I'm going to get the session factory and open it. We're going to start the transaction, and we're going to do the same thing we've done up there. We're going to print out any errors. Okay, if the transaction is not null, we need to roll it back. Okay, and finally we'll close the session. Good practice, always close the session when you're done using them. All right, we're going to initialize the transaction once more from the session. Oops, sorry. Begin transaction. Now this is where I'm going to have to add the criteria API. Just see how it goes. Criteria, I'm going to insert criteria. I'm going to call it CR is equals to session dot create criteria, and I'm going to use the employee class. I'm creating the criteria for, just basically says I'm creating the session from my employees class. So I need to put the filters now. So I'm going to say criteria, add restrictions. So here you can go and read about the criteria API, but here we're going to use equal, and we are going to use the property for the employee ID. It has to have the same value as it has here. So I'm going to copy this into here, and I'm going to say this is the emp ID, and I'm going to commit this first. Now this one will generate an SQL statements which is select star from, it will be like in traditional SQL statement will be select star from employees, where emp ID is equals to whatever employee ID we're going to give it. So I want us now, we just need to say employees is equals to our criteria dot list. Okay, and that's it. So as you can see, now we have we can get all the details of any employee we need just by supplying an employee ID. But as you can see, again here, we've not written a single select statement to fetch the information from the database. So this function will work with any database that you can think of out there, because it's not syntax independent. All right, now let's see how this works also. So I'm going to save this, and allow me to to comment all this out, because I don't want more records into our database. We are already done using this, but I'm not going to remove it. I'll just let it remain there so that you can refer just in case. We have two employees which we've added, and we have employee number 1 and we have employee number 2. So we know we have employee ID 1, employee ID 2. So I want us to get values for any of these I want us to get values for any of these employees. And what I'll do now, I'll just say integer employee ID or emp ID is equals to 1. Okay, then let's do the list, initialize the list, employees, call him emps, whichever name, is equals to now our database access object. We just call it, because it's a static method, get employee details, and we supply it with the employee ID. So as you can see, we are now able to initialize our list object for employees class with the emp ID 1. Now I can get any information I want about this employee. Say for example, I wanted to know where this employee is located, or where this employee, how much is this employee salary, or whichever information is contained in that database. So what I'll say, I'll just iterate through this list and say for employees, call him emps. Okay, we can say, we just say we want to just get the employee location. We can say system dot out dot print emp dot get location, get employee location. Okay, so this, when we call this this function, ideally our employee number 1 is, as you can see, is in Origafric. It's at Origafric. So when we run this system now, or application now, it should be able to give us that this employee number 1 is at Origafric. Let's see, run, and as you can see down here, the system returns Origafric. Let's put the other employee number 2 and see. if you give employee number 2 and run this, the application will be able to give you that this employee is in Nairobi. And as you can see, we've been able to achieve this by entirely using the criteria API without putting database specific information from in our application. We've been able to add information into this database, and we have been able to retrieve information from this database. That's all I'm going to show you for today. There's a lot of things to learn from the criteria API, how to use greater than, how to use equals, how to do the different database operations. But this is for just those people who want to learn how to use the object relation mapping technology to either store information in the databases or fetch information from the databases without having to be dependent on the database type, whether it be Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, Postgres. If we needed to use this application with Oracle, all we needed to change was this configuration file, to have Oracle specific URL, driver, dialect, and username and password, and the application would go ahead to work without you having to change the code. Thank you very much for joining me in this small tutorial. I hope you've learned something from it. I use this in all my application. I don't like writing SQL statements because they restrict my applications into what database I can use them in. So thank you very much from Origafric Softwares. We hope you've learned something. Thank you.